Hello
Okay.
and welcome to a special episode, holiday special episode of All Things 3D. Today is December 22nd, 2014. We've got 3 days to go. So, I'm your co host, Chris, and
Yeah.
producing today, we've got
Mike, yay!
in the back,
Yeah, man.
and we are doing a special setup for Christmas presents under the tree episode. This one is going to cover kind of FFF FDM style printers.
Okay.
This one's
Hang on, Chris.
particularly
We already have technical issues. We've already lost you. Okay, go again.
all right. So we are focusing here on an FFF printer. So we're going to go through some basic principles and some software to get you up and going with your FFF printer if you haven't already done that. And you might even, if you have before, you might even learn some tricks along the way that you didn't know before. So we're focusing today on the MakerGear M2, which is a real nice machine. Where's that built out of?
I think it's steel.
No, but where is it made out
Oh,
of?
it's in Ohio.
Ohio.
Yeah, we seem to have a lot of people that are coming from Ohio. So,
Yeah. And so this is the, can we zoom down here a little bit?
okay.
Kind of.
So, as mentioned, that's the MakerGear.
The MakerGear
So you have
M2.
M2. Now this has been around for about, I want to say, year and 3/4, close to 2 years. We actually will have somebody joining us in about 1:30 from MakerGear to kind of give us a little bit of runabout on their particular printer, as well as some of the new features that are coming out. They're coming out with a new hot end as well as a dual, and
Yeah, so basically, a lot of the printers are fundamentally the same. Most printers are the same in the FFF market. They might have a little bit of there's some subtle differences, but they all primarily do the same thing. They extrude a piece of plastic filament that usually comes off of these spool reels, and it looks like weed whacker line when it comes off. And you can buy this in ABS, PLA, PET, and there's probably well over 100 materials on the market by now that you can extrude through FFF printers. It comes up, this particular printer is what's called a direct drive. So you've got the motor is actually directly above what we call the hot end. And so the hot end is here, and that's where the material actually comes out of. So the material is fed by a motor, and then there's either a ceramic heater cartridge or a resistor, and a thermistor, which is also, it's a fancy word for a temperature sensor. And that temperature sensor is taking a reading of how hot that hot end is, sending it back to the computer or the control board, and the control board is regulating the voltage sent to the ceramic heater cartridge so that you have a precise amount of heat inside of that hot end. So there's many different types of hot ends, but they all run the same principle. It's a resistor inside of the hot end with a temperature sensor, a thermistor. So the material, so in this case, what is it? This is ABS.
Actually, that is the new Polymaker PLA Plus or something like that.
PLA Plus. So typically you would extrude this at about, what, 180, 190?
They recommend about 210 to 220, but yeah, normally PLA is 180, but in this particular type, it's 210 to 220, and they claim that it's actually stronger than ABS. And I've actually printed a couple things. If you notice on the bed, there's, Mikey elf. And doesn't he look a little familiar?
The little Keebler elf. He's a
No,
little
it's
Mikey
my
elf.
face.
I know it is. That's awesome. So So yeah, so it comes off in this weed whacker line, goes up through the head, and is extruded in a precise amount. This motor is a stepper motor, very finely controls how much material is getting stepped through this hot end. So, and then the orifice, there's also an orifice on size on this hot end, and those vary. And so, getting all of those, getting all those numbers into the computer is a very important part of setting up your 3D printer for the first time. So, you definitely want to make note of a few things when you first unbox your printer. Number one is your orifice size. How big is your actual opening in your orifice?
That one is 0.45?
Maybe 0.45.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that one is, yes.
Okay. So normally there's some sort of indicator. This one is kind of gooped up after some use. This printer has been used. But normally you can either read it on the side of your nozzle, or you'll just go into the specs of your machine and be able to find it out pretty quick. Another important measurement to take note of is, of course, your filament diameter. The two main filament sizes on the market are 1.75 millimeter and 3 millimeter. However, you do want to take calipers to your so you want to go to the store and buy some calipers and take a precise measurement of your filament. You'll get a lot better reading.
I've got a hot end nozzle there. That's a 0.35.
So here's a 0.35. This is what a nozzle looks like. It's really small, usually brass or stainless steel. So yeah, so you want to go to the hardware store and you want to get yourself a nice pair of calipers. It not only will help you calibrate your machine properly, but it'll allow you to get these variables into the computer, so you can get up in printing and save yourself a lot of headache.
I'd like to go ahead at this particular point and introduce two of our esteemed experts from both MakerGear and Simplified 3D. Simplified 3D is the software we'll be using today, and which is Hi. Is that correct?
Yes, it's Hi.
Hi. Hi.
Hi.
You probably get that all the time, so I won't do it. And then we also have Ryan. Ryan, do you have a microphone on?
Yes, I do.
Okay. And we have Ryan, and he doesn't appear to have a camera, but that's fine. So what I'm hoping is that he'll be able to look at our screen, because we'll actually go to that particular screen shortly, and he can walk us through some Simplified 3D as well. So I'm sorry, I apologize. Hi, will be going through Simplified 3D. Ryan, you can see the MakerGear that we have up on the screen, is that correct?
Absolutely, I can.
Okay. So why don't you go ahead and kind of guide us through that? And Chris gave us an overview of an FDM type printer, but what's specific to the MakerGear that makes it a unique and a robust printer? You know, it's been around, I wanted to say about 2 years. Is that correct, or why don't you give me a more specific date?
The MakerGear M2 we started selling around the beginning of 2013, and it's a third generation printer. We learned some things early on, just like several of our competitors. That, you know, the best way to make a printer is out of better materials, and so we use a steel frame, and at the top of the frame there's a top plate on there that holds the rails. That's machined. There's the stage that moves the bed up and down. That's the Z stage. That's machined. You know, we machine the spider plate that goes on the machine onto the printer. And so basically, in having all of these machined components and heavy-duty steel frame, we deal with potential vibration from moving around very, very well. It also makes the machine a lot more robust for long-term usage. And you know, we've got printers that we've been running here in our shop since we first started making the M2, and they run so reliably and so precise day after day. And so that's one of the things that we're really proud of here. And it seems like the world is really starting to find out, because we're just getting blasted with orders too. So it's been pretty exciting for us.
Awesome.
Well, that's good. Yeah, what's funny is that Make just had their, what do you call it, their printer round shootout, and I noticed, sadly, that yours wasn't in it. I don't know if you didn't provide one, or did they feel that it was an older model. Can you kind of give us a little bit of insight on what happened there?
Yeah, actually, I'm not very familiar with why Make is, going one way or the other with who they're testing. Um, uh, it's certainly um, it's certainly not very representative. I mean, of what the market seems to be thinking. If you check out our reviews online, and I won't say any specific sites, but
I will.
you're
Amazon.
Amazon's definitely a very good representative for us, and you'll see that the users just love our printer. And there's a recent um, website that also came out with their awards for the year, and they pulled some 2,000 plus users of actual printers, and our printer performed at the very top of that ranking. And they said 100% of the people who had our printer uh, loved it and wanted to continue to use it. They didn't have any dissatisfaction with it. So the fact that Make decided not to run our printer, you almost wonder, hey, what's it take to get in there? Is it maybe being a bigger name brand type printer, or?
You know, my take. Here's my thought. I don't think it was necessarily intentional, but I read the preface as that for the 2014 shootout, the machines themselves were released in 2014. So I don't know. So the shootout was all between printers that this generation of printer came out this year.
Yeah, but they did also give a side note for the original Ultimaker. So.
Yeah, so maybe they
So
maybe
like
they
you
do
said,
play
I
favorites a little bit. I don't know.
don't know, but as you know, I've got a MakerGear. I've had it for some time. I bought mine used, and I've kind of cobbled and patched it together. And one of the nice things I think about the MakerGear is its hackability. I mean, it's such an open frame and easy design to work with that literally you can add things, and you have been adding new things. So a person who's got an older MakerGear can go with the 24-volt system now. They can go with the newer hot ends as you release them. You keep evolving this thing because, I guess the positive is it's a solid steel frame, and there's very little that can go wrong with it. Now I've made some
Absolutely.
changes. If you want to go back to the camera and point out, I'm going to go to the extruder. I'll have to track it up. Yeah, we're going to have to fire that cameraman. So essentially, you may be familiar with a company out of Israel called Micron, and they've been selling these on eBay for some time. But I found that they've got an all-metal extruder that is well crafted, well designed, and I guess we kind of, there we go. No, we're going to have to fire. Maybe if I hold it up here. Whoa. Okay.
So an all-metal hot end, Mike, you were mentioning.
Yes. So it's an all-metal hot end, and it doesn't, actually I forgot to order it, but the plate that holds the J-hen I had to fabricate myself and out of plastic, but they're sending me an all-metal one as well. But what's nice is it fits right on the edge of the plate for the trolley or the movement system here, and really didn't require more fabrication. I did figure the fans. I've got the one that angles down for the hot end itself, and then I have another one, your main one, or the larger one, that I created kind of like a funnel to blow on the actual extruder end. And it seems to work pretty well. I've run it about 20 hours now, and it seems to work good. So as mentioned, it's completely modifiable. And Chris, you've got a Luzbot, which is similar in design, and it also is kind of the same way.
But probably so remind us the price point of this particular model.
So the MakerGear M2 is $1,775, and and that being there, I mean, it's a little bit more affordable than the old bots say, and you talk about the hackability of it, and that's certainly something that we all love about it, and being able to tailor it and play with it and come up with new ideas for upgrades. We have several floating out there right now. So
yeah, I like how in a lot of the open source users, on Thingiverse and things, they're putting they're putting out files for, here's Mike has a piece it looks like he printed out.
I printed out a
tool holder.
And then there's a new spool holder that I printed out.
Spool holder.
I didn't print
it's
out
cool.
this
All the
here.
upgrades that you can do on all these machines now that are kind of.
I had
really
some
cool.
disco lights to it. There's a little ball that. No,
It's
kidding.
It's got a little LED strip here to light up the print.
So yes, it's modified. It's a nice printer if you want something robust, but at the same time, I think you offer this in a kit form as well. Is that
we do
correct?
offer it in the kit form. We definitely encourage people who are looking to save a few dollars. Maybe that's not the best bet, but if they're interested in actually putting together their printer for the sake of doing that, they can get the kit for $1,475.
Yeah, or if you buy one used, you might be rebuilding it as well. I think I've taken this whole thing apart already. Okay, well, let's kind of move on to, let's get this thing started. So Ryan, if you want to walk us through what we need to do in order to get this thing up and running, I'd appreciate it.
Okay, so when you anybody who gets a printer, they'll be pulling it out of the box, and upon pulling it out of the box, you just want to make sure first that your power supply is reading the correct voltage for your country, because we do have a switch on there, and as many of you might know, if you have the if you're saying you have 230 coming from your wall and you actually have 110 supply, that might be a problem. So you want to make sure your switch is set correctly. You're gonna plug it into the wall and into your printer. From there, you're gonna at that point it's much easier to move the X and Y and the Z without causing any strain to the Rambo electronics control board in there. So so then once you have it plugged in, you're going to level the bed. We have and I guess you guys are going to be speaking about using some of the Simplify 3D features on this, which are
right. So if you wouldn't mind us walking us through it when we get to that point, I'd appreciate it.
Sure, no problem.
So I don't know if you just watched Chris, but yeah, it appears that you have like rubber mounts that the glass fits in.
Yes. So the actual aluminum plate that has the heater connected to it, and then the glass will go on top of that, is all it all kind of fits within those rubber mounts, and then we use those oh so classy binder clips to hold it down. But a lot of our users find those to be convenient. So
yeah, and lately I've been using PET tape on top of the glass, because it's kind of not only protects the glass, but in conjunction with a glue stick, I find that ABS becomes less problematic with the warpage. So I use you can buy a PET tape in like a roll, and you can spray a little bit of water to make application a little easier, and then you use a squeegee and kind of run it on your glass and then trim it with a razor blade.
Yeah. What I've got on mine here is a company called BuildTech, which it's a nice material, but if you don't have, it's got, I can't say it's somewhat self-adhesive, but it can be removed easily, so temporary adhesive.
Yeah.
But BuildTech's the name of the company, and I've got it on a couple of my printers. The only problem I have with it is if you don't calibrate your bed and your head impacts it, it's very soft. And if you notice, I've got a few gouges in the print bed from doing that. So you might want to get yourself an extra one if you're just working with it for the first time. But I find it to work really well too. I used a glue stick, which I have here, and then one of the things that I also use with glue is once I put it on there, after a while it builds up, and then I just take a sponge with some moisture and then kind of remove it, but it also creates a thin layer, and sometimes you don't need to apply any more glue,
Right.
and that works out well. And you just, when your bed is heating up, it kind of dries the excess water.
Yeah, they do recommend, different manufacturers that I've found recommend you use a glue stick when the bed is cold, because for some reason when it's hot and you try to apply glue, it doesn't react the same way with the ABS, so it doesn't adhere as well. So you want to make sure your bed is cooled down, or at least below 100 C.
Yeah, that's a good point, Chris. I've noticed that as well. If you apply it when it's hot, then it literally evaporates, and you just got this film, and you lose all the adhesive properties of the glue. So good point.
So what else do we need to know?
I mean, whether you're using the Build Tech bed, I use glass and Kapton tape, but the big thing here is you get the bed level. If the bed is level, and if you're printing at the right height, meaning you've got your Z set so that when you get that bed lifted all the way to the top, there's a little light on our printer that'll go off, let you know you're basically at your 0 point. If you're leveled and printing very close to the bed, you should have a really good print if you have the right adhesion happening on the bed itself as well.
So Chris, there is a USB cable off to your right there. Go ahead and close that window. We're not hooked up yet. So up on the computer itself, off to the left-hand side, right there.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, take the other end of that, and you'll need to plug it into the front of the MakerGear. Now, one of the things I've noticed on the older model, Ryan, and maybe you can tell us if it's changed, are you still using the same power adapter? I know you've gone to 24 volts now.
Mm-hmm.
Are you still using the same connector on the back of the Rambo, or because I found that it's not as secure as that I would like.
Are you using that 6-pin connector there?
Actually, I'm still using the dual power supplies. I haven't gone to the 24 yet, which has a 6 and a 4 and a 2-pin. I think the 2-pin is for the 19-volt power supply for the heat or the heated bed. Is that correct?
I believe so. Yes.
Okay.
So currently now we're using a 6-pin connector straight from our power supply. So it's one connector, and it really does hold in there pretty firmly.
Okay. Yeah, that was, I don't ever move it, but right now we're kind of rotating a little bit, so I'm a little concerned with it. So once you have this up, another thing that I noticed, some of the newer boards can use 250K or 250K, but this one I have set at 115. What do you recommend when you're hooking it up to simplified 3D high?
I believe on our MakerGears we usually run it at 115. If it is a 250K baud rate printer, it won't connect at actually it will connect at 115. But it's better to use the baud rate that it's set to. So if it is 250K, connect at 250K. But I believe the MakerGears are 115.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Okay. I've got a feeler gauge, but it's a little thicker than it needs to be. So we'll just have to play with it. Actually, I've been using it, just running a little tight. It should be pretty well calibrated. So hi, I'm going to move to the actual screen that shows your software. And why don't you kind of guide us? I think if you go under Tools, is that correct?
Yeah, so I selected up here by Tools and Machine Control Panel.
Right.
Yeah.
And
so
I have to say, this is the first time I've ever used the software. Things seem to be right where they're supposed to be. I've heard a lot of really good things about the software. I haven't taken the step to buy it myself yet, but I'm sure it'll be coming to me pretty soon here. Yeah, it looks pretty straightforward, kind of a similar plot to other things. And I know the software is really feature-rich, so maybe guide us through it a little bit.
Yeah.
all right. So yeah.
No, go ahead. Hi, I apologize.
Yeah, no problem. So the screen that you're looking at right now, this is the machine control panel. It lets you know that you're connected to the machine. It can let you set temperatures manually if you say you wanted to preheat the machine as you're playing around with the model, playing around with different settings. You can manually jog the printer with the jog controls on the left side over here. This is really good if you want to test out leveling, if you want to do some maintenance. The retraction and the extrude commands are really good for loading filament. There's an emergency stop button that you might need in case, like, if the printer's clogged or jammed, which we haven't really had any jams on our MakerGear, so we haven't had to use it, but it's there just in case you need to. So this is kind of just for the user to really take control of their machine and do maintenance, view different aspects like the temperature plot. A lot of times with different printers, if the printer shuts off, the temperature plot might be a good indicator that you might have hit the temperature ceiling. If it's not extruding, you might be too low and hit cold extrusion. So this is really good for the user to monitor if they want to. Yeah, so you can see that since it is preheating, that the temperature is rising. So you know that you can, and also on the side you can see it as well.
Now, if I remember correctly, one of the reasons you went to a 24-volt system is so that the heated bed, which takes a little longer than some of my other printers to heat up, but that's the reason you've gone to it, if I remember correctly, so that it heats up much quicker. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, our bed is heating up quite a bit more quickly now.
So this isn't a good indication of it. The newer MakerGears do come with the 24-volt system, and the hot end as well as the heated bed do heat up quicker.
And here Mike just loaded some, it looks like our extruder is up to temp. And he reloaded some material here.
Here, actually, let me switch back to that camera. Okay.
And
go ahead.
Here the material is starting to get fed into the head. And if you can see it,
it should start oozing out.
There it is.
Yay, it worked.
There we go. We can kind of see it. And what I like to do is just give it a nice little bit of feed. So then that way, and don't burn yourself. I usually like to use a pair of tweezers. Having a set of tools to do pretty much repair or work with the machine and work with materials is extremely important, especially when you're whether you're just getting started or if you're a veteran. And kind of my tool selection has kept growing. So some of the tools we really like.
Oh, I love this thing.
Spatula type tools, so you can dislodge parts from the build table.
And what's nice about this particular one, if I'll bring it up to the camera, is it's extremely thin and very rigid, so it can actually slip underneath. So you're not actually prying it as much as breaking the bond. So this is a great tool. You can buy it on Amazon. They have 2 different types. I think it's about $10 to $15, but well worth it. And the other thing that Amazon carries
is a glue stick for the bed to help, like we were talking about, help the material adhere to the bed a little bit better. Usually want to have some of the little either needle nose pliers, dikes, wire cutters, or like I was saying, I like to have little tweezers. I find with any electronics project, having a set of good tweezers lying around it's like my #1 go-to tool. And what the tweezers let you do is grab this hot material and kind of get it out of the way right after you extrude it. So so I think we're pretty much ready to move on to our next phase, which if we had just gotten this printer and it was fresh out of the box, like Ryan was mentioning, the first step really is to calibrate the bed in relation to the Z stage, because you want this Z stage here to be as flat as possible, because if it's not, one edge of your printer is going to be on the first layer, on some portion of the print bed, is basically going to be printing in error. So you basically need that 0 home level, which is your bed level, to be the same across your bed. So I think Ryan's going to run us through a little calibration routine.
Yeah. Yeah, Ryan, why don't you kind of identify for us, please, what you actually use to manipulate the bed itself. It's a three-point system, but as I think you described it, it's kind of like a seesaw. And I think that's one thing a lot of people need to get their head around, unlike some of the other printers like the Makerbot, which has a three-point system, but it seems to be fairly easy. This one takes a little bit more to understand. So Ryan, if you wouldn't mind going through it real quick for us, I'd appreciate it.
Sure. So you have 3 points. You have two that are in a line. If you're looking at the printer head on, you have two that are in a line coming from you, and then one off to the right. And this is all underneath the bed. So the two that are in a line together, you'll use those to adjust the printer, adjust the bed to be higher in the front or higher in the back. And in turning either of the bolts that make those adjustments, you're going to throw off the right-left level. So let's say well, you start with the bed brought up to the nozzle as close as you can get it, and you'll run it backwards and forwards along the left side of the bed. And when you do this, you'll see that the bed is either closer in the front or closer in the back. If the bed is closer in the front to the nozzle than it is in the back, then you'll need to adjust the back bolt. You'll turn it from your hand's perspective. You'll turn it counterclockwise a little bit until the bed is at the same height at the back as it is in the front. Once you've leveled it front to back, then you can worry about the side-to-side leveling, and from there it's just a matter of adjusting that other bolt. Now all of the printers that we send out from our shop are leveled beforehand, so you shouldn't have to do too much leveling, and in reality you should at most have to use two of those bolts to do the front to back leveling and then the side-to-side leveling.
So the printer comes pre-calibrated, but maybe during shifting it might slightly take it out of calibration. So really, sure, most of the calibration should be fine-tuned for the assembled machines. But with the kit machines, obviously, you're going to have to pretty much start from scratch.
Now, another thing I want to point out, maybe you brought this up, and I don't know if you can see it. There's an end stop. Oh, where's it at? Bolt. Oh, it's already up here. That's located on the bed that determines the stop point for the bed itself. And that, I don't know, did you mention that already, Ryan?
To home the Z.
So once you've leveled the bed, then you want to make sure that the bed is at the correct height relative to the nozzle. So you're going to have that bolt loose, and that's running through the Z stage there. And then when you get the bed right to the point where the nozzle's almost touching it, and your feeler gauge, or really just a piece of paper or a business card, it can just barely slide under that nozzle. Then you're going to set that Z screw by turning it up until the light turns on. Now that light's going to turn on because you're going to flip a switch as that Z screw is screwed up towards that switch.
Got it. And so then so after you have kind of made sure your build plate is level, then we set our Z height, and that tells us our home position. So for our first layer, basically how smushed that first layer is going to be, because that's what's bonding to the build platform. And we kind of go into that in detail in other videos, and there's a lot more videos on obviously online that you can find with different, but a lot of it is just trial and error, experimenting, and once you kind of figure out the optimum, I'll say, squish factor, then you'll be off to printing, successfully printing on your printer for the first time.
I also want to mention with Hi is that inside Simplified 3D they do have a if you go to Tools, a bed leveling
Software.
wizard, or whatever you want to call it, and essentially allows you to go to the 4 points of your bed in order to use that. So, and then you can also set manual points as well. So if you want to click on that real quick, so Tools,
So I'm going up to Tools here.
and then Bed Leveling Wizard.
I want to switch to my screen here. So the bed leveling wizard.
So Hi, do you want to bring that up? Talk
Yeah,
about it a little bit?
so a really big important factor of a successful print is the first layer. So that's why we've included this in here. Once your machine is connected and you hit the begin leveling button on the bottom right there, all this should be set up already if you have the MakerGear profile selected. So if you hit begin leveling, it should home the printer. I think I hear it doing.
Yep.
And then if you hit next, it'll go around to the different points of the printer. So this should be the front left corner, and you want to make sure that's at the correct height. It looks pretty good to me. And then when you hit next again, it'll bring it to another corner, and it'll go around all 4 corners. Try to get the best leveling as possible, and then
That's a little tight, I think.
Okay, so Ryan, what would we
No,
do
maybe
if it's a
not.
little tight?
Okay, so
That might be possible because you lifted the glass up there, so it may need to be readjusted again. So,
So
go ahead, I'm
if
sorry,
it-
Ryan.
if it is a little tight, it could be either a front to back out of level or a right to left. So, so really, what we'd want to do is we'd want to confirm whether that was a front to back out of level or right to left out of level. And if it's
So how would you go about doing that, Ryan?
and personally, what I do is I get my line of sight right up next to it, so I can see the nozzle versus the bed, and I slide that bed back and forth, front to back. So if I'm looking at it very closely and I slide it front to back, I can see whether the nozzle is closer at the back or the front. And maybe in this case, it's higher or the nozzle's further away from the bed in the front. So
If you go
in that
back to the motor control, go back to which you were at before, there's a way to disable all. Well,
Yeah, I know.
but if you do that, you'll also.
yeah, if you disable all the motors, the Z is going to drop
I
down.
know, I just said that.
So so is it automatically taking that build? I mean, it's obviously so I think Ryan, we're more referring to in this bed leveling wizard. So Hi, if it was a little tight on that upper right hand corner, now what do I do?
So with a 4-point system, you would just adjust that one corner. But I think what Ryan is saying is you want to see if it's going to be with the 3-point. You kind of have to know how the seesaw motion kind of works. So if you actually go into the machine control panel, and I believe, hold on, let me see, X, Y, you jog the Y minus 100, it should move the bed back.
Minus 100.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then you check there.
That's real tight. Or well, I mean it's pretty tight. I have a
Keep them point at say 0.15.
So
Yeah,
if it's tight on the right side, then you'd want to lower the right left on the right side of it. But not by much.
So would we want to go to the X right now? Move it to the other side to verify.
Yeah. So jog the X negative 100.
So go back to the other motor control.
and move the X to minus 100.
Yeah.
And it's about the same.
All right. So if it's about the same, then the whole bed itself should be pretty level.
Well, I guess we'll find that out soon.
Yeah.
Okay, so at this particular point, we're at 1:49. We started 10 minutes. So how about we get into Simplified 3D? I've already got a model loaded. I don't know if you were able to get the link, but I took something off of Thingiverse. I can't think of her name now, but I want to thank her. I think I put it at the bottom of the screen. She has this little elf, but I decided to modify it and add a weird-looking face to it. It looks kind of like me. It creeped my wife out. But so essentially, I've already got something loaded. But before we do that, how would I load something, Kai?
So if you pull up the Simplified 3D software, there's a couple ways you can load a model in. You can hit the import button with the it's right there, and this way you can select different models right here. So yeah, you can select models this way, and you can select multiple models and then import them in, or you can just drag and drop models into the program as well. That always works.
Okay, so you have a drag and drop feature as well.
Yeah.
Okay. So you have some hotkeys that work with the positioning of your model. You want to go through those real quick?
Yeah, sure. So if you just click and drag with the standard left button, it's going to rotate the view of the model. And then if you use the right click and drag, it's going to pan the camera around. And then if you wanted to move the model somewhere around the bed, if you hold the control button and left click and drag, it'll give you a top-down perspective where you can kind of reposition the model.
Yeah, I find this really useful, especially because I haven't changed out my build tech sheet yet, that I try to stay away from the middle because it's been deformed. So.
Oh yeah.
So I put it towards the rear.
Yeah, I mean, like sometimes if you print in one area for too long and it kind of ruins the tackiness of it, you can reposition the model to a place where it's unused tape and don't have to change the tape too often.
Awesome.
And if you wanted to resize the model, there's two ways to do that. You can hold the control and right click and drag, and it'll scale the model up and down. Or if you want to get more precise scaling and more precise rotating, you can double click the model, and it should bring up a model settings window right here. This will give you more precise scaling, some dimensions of the object itself, some rotation and stuff.
Yeah, so you get all your absolute settings with that.
Yeah.
So you can not only adjust the scale, but you can also adjust positioning from there as well.
Right.
And then if you really want to get fast, you have your center and arrange button that's right below that main window that will literally arrange everything that's on your bed, correct?
Correct.
God, that guy's creepy.
Hey, I like it. So and then what next?
So usually when you open up the software for the first time, it'll ask you what kind of printer you have. Since you've already opened it, it should be set to the right profile. If you hit the Edit Process Settings button in the bottom left,
You need to highlight the process one there. There you
No, it's thinking.
go. No, it's broken.
There we go.
here we go. So this is the kind of the beginner view of it, where you don't want to change all the settings. This one you have on the. Is this the correct profile? Polymaker. So
Yeah,
you
that's
want
the one I'm using for the Polymaker Polymax filament.
Oh, okay. All right. So if you do click the Show Advanced, like you just did, this one kind of shows all the more in-depth features or settings that you'd want to tweak. So say you print something and you really want to get it to look more fine or better, there are a lot of settings in here that you can tweak and try to improve on every print. And the more you print, the more you learn, and the more you learn, the more settings you tweak, and you learn even more.
Yeah, and one of the nice things about your particular software is that it does give you a lot of variables to work with. As you said, you can start out easy, and then as you refine it, you can both do multiple extruders, and you have a lot of control over that, as well as fans. But really what I like about this is that you can set temperatures or fan speeds based upon layers, and which I think is a really cool feature.
Yeah.
That you can do in some others, but it's a little more difficult. Plus, if you want to add scripts based upon the printer, you have that under scripts.
Yeah.
Right now, I haven't messed with it. The 5D firmware include E-dimension. That's normally checked. Can you kind of give me a little insight on what you're doing there?
Yeah. So with the 5D firmware, usually it should be checked. That's just going to include the E dimension, is what it's called. So with the standard 3D printers nowadays, you have the X movement, the Y movement, the Z, and then the E axis is for the extrusion. Some printers, actually more CNC kind of style machines, don't use an E axis, so they wouldn't use the E motor. But since we have it for 3D printers, we usually keep that checked.
Okay. And then I've noticed in another question that you can both support the Cartesian-based or the deltas now.
Yeah, so if you actually click delta and you hit OK,
oh, I don't want to do that. Go ahead.
you can always change it back. It's simple. So if you hit OK, you can see that it's changed itself to a delta style build platform for better visual representation. But you should change it back because
it also changed your coordinates to the middle.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
all kinds of weird things. I do have a Castle Clear back here, but and I have made a profile for it and using it. One of the things I think I asked is that when you do a delta, it creates a circular bed, even though I have a square bed. So I guess I just go to the square of that round in order to determine its dimensions, and it seems to work out okay.
Yeah, so it should be under the G-code tab. Yeah, and you want to change it back to Cartesian. And yeah, so those are our more advanced settings.
So can we go back to the profile one more time and just kind of go through? You click on select profile. I want to show the audience the number of profiles that you have available to.
Yeah, so if you click on the that drop down where it says select printer profile at the top, if you scroll around, those are all the profiles that we include. At the bottom should be any of the custom profiles if you've made any and exported them. But these are
alphabetical orders, so
yeah.
maybe. So what did I call it? Poly. So make.
I think we might have lost it, unfortunately.
Oh, no.
But these should be the correct settings that you've had on it.
Okay. So let's go ahead and export because we can add our own profile. So go ahead and export, Chris.
Yeah. So before we choose any other ones, let's export it to make sure we save it. So you hit the export button in the top right. And you name it. Oh, there's your Polymaker. So actually,
so I have one already.
If you hit cancel and you hit import, it should bring up the window for you to import it in a second. Usually doesn't take this long. Your computer might be bogged down a little bit.
There's nothing else really going on, so I don't. There it is.
So if you double click on that or hit open on that, it should import all the settings for that profile that you've saved. So this is a good way if you want to save different settings like different materials, different printers that you might have. Different types of processes that you might want, like 100% solid kind of model, or a vase mode kind of model.
There we go. Okay. And then just hit OK.
Yeah.
And then we should be able to hit prepare for print.
We should, but I think we'd want to put some supports on it. So
Okay.
if you click on the generate supports, it should be right next to include raft, or right there. Yeah, that's fine. So that will automatically generate supports for you. So if you hit OK, and then you hit prepare to print, so this is the model right here with the supports generated. On the
Just
left
to
side, if
comment,
you,
I was able to print this model, which will show in a little bit, without supports.
okay,
A little bit of overhang, but for the most part, it turned out really good.
all right,
So I have found that if you can minimize your supports, do so.
yeah, definitely.
It's really a struggle to get off and clean up.
So with this right here, this is our G-code previewer. After you slice the model, it'll show you exactly what the G-code is going to do, and this is a good way to see, make sure that your model is going to print out properly, and that there aren't going to be any mess-ups. The red lines you see are called travel moves. Those aren't actually printing, so I usually like to keep them off. If you on the left side, there's all these check boxes. If you turn off the travel moves, it just looks a lot better, and this will just show what's going to be printed.
Yeah, I kind of like the travel mode because you can tell how far your head has to move from
Yeah,
one location to another, and sometimes you might get some stringy. So sometimes just by rotating your model, you can minimize that. And from what Clayton mentioned, you can also control that process as well. And obviously, that's a little above this, but maybe in the future we can talk our way.
yeah, definitely. But if you wanted to print this without supports, you can always go back, exit. So one of the cool things is instead of sending this print in to the printer and then eventually seeing like, oh, like there's a mess up here. If you did see something mess up, you can always hit exit preview mode, make some changes, and then reslice really quickly, and really not waste the time or filament trying to print something that might fail in the future.
Yeah, it's pretty powerful. And I think at this particular point, it looks like Ryan could only stay on for a little bit, but I appreciate Ryan coming in from MakerGear, giving us a little rundown. But at this particular point, you now have the option of printing via USB or SD card. Now, I do have the control panel for the MakerGear that uses micro SD, and I do have a card system in front there that I could do that, which is what I used in the past. But sometimes it's convenient to have it hooked up for control process and so forth.
Yeah.
The only thing I don't like about the MakerGear, and I don't know if it's just a Rambo board in general or there are newer Rambo boards. I think they've got a newer model now. I would like to see a 250 or twice the performance. I noticed with my Castle Clear, it does have a faster throughput. So moving things to it seems to work better. And especially with complex G-code, it can take a little while to transfer everything to the printer. So do you want to try and print it?
Yeah.
Okay.
So
you should just be able to begin to print, and then so right now it's preheating the bed. If you hit the little gear icon in the right side, that's another way to bring up the machine control panel right here. And this is a good way to monitor to see what it's doing. If you hit the temperature plot, you can see where the set point is for the bed. So it's a little higher than where the bed is right now. So it's going to wait for the solid line to get to the dashed line, and then once it goes there, it'll try to preheat the extruder. But since the extruder is already at temperature, it'll start printing about 10 seconds after that.
Now, one thing that I noticed, and Chris, you alluded to it earlier, that you wanted to stream a little bit or filament beforehand to kind of clear the nozzle. One of the things that's nice about Simplify 3D is it will go to the right-hand side of the bed, or in our case on the left-hand side, extrude for about 3 or 4 seconds, doing the same thing before it starts printing, which I think is a really neat feature. So I'll cut back to our main screen.
Yeah, and like the reason why a lot of people like that, why we include it is because when you start printing and it hasn't really done that, we call it a purge. There'll be a lot of gap between the nozzle, the tip of the nozzle, and where the filament actually is, and it could cause some really bad first layers if it tries to print a few pieces of the first layer and the filament hasn't gotten to the nozzle yet. So we like to put in a purge feature so that just to make sure that the filament is ready to go.
No, I think that's really nice. It's something that Cura lacks, or at least I haven't seen it in my use of it. And yes, normally I add another layer of, your brim? I put another layer to do the same thing, but yeah, it's kind of a neat feature.
Yeah, so the skirt or the brim, a lot of people like to use that as another way to show that, just to make sure the filament is ready to go. Some people even for ABS prints. I'm not sure how well this works. I personally haven't tried it, but sometimes they'll put the skirt all the way up to kind of keep their heat inside.
So here it goes.
So here we go. So it's going to traverse all the way across, and here's where it'll spit out the filament.
Yeah, I saw some filament there.
Now we didn't put any glue down, so I don't know if it looks like it's sticking. Good.
So what I like to do is really pay attention close and start to learn. I think another key is just, like I was mentioning in the beginning, is gaining experience. Is kind of part of it, and you can read books all you want, and you can watch as many YouTubes as possible, but really nothing will teach you like doing it. So they say, there's a saying in the community, the 3D printing community, that the first 3 layers are the absolute most important layers of your print. So you really want to make sure you're paying super close attention to those first 3 layers. Wow, this thing is really hauling butt.
First, on that note, I have noticed that I find myself making sure that I see those before leaving it.
Right.
You're seeing a lot of these new devices say, just send your printout to it and walk away. I have never found that to be the case. In fact, when I walk away, that's when it fails. So I like to hang around, and sometimes I get mesmerized, and the next thing you know, I've lost an hour of my life. No, just kidding. But
it happens all the time at our offices.
Yeah. So for me, I just pay super close attention to those first 3 to 10 layers, making sure that, especially on big prints, that none of the corners are peeling up, because really the corners peeling up is really the trouble spots that cause your whole print to fail later on. And ABS, like we were saying, and nylon are notorious for warping. So making sure that they adhere to the bed properly, your bed temp is the right temp. Those are important variables that you need to get right. And those will get you off to a really good start if you do them right, and a really wrong start if you get them wrong. So, but this is looking like it's off to a really great start. So, I would feel comfortable walking away from this.
I think I would too. Yeah, it's actually. Did we remove the? No, it doesn't look like we did. So we're printing this with supports.
Yeah.
So another thing about supports is that, if you don't need them, don't put them in there, because they add to your print time. And we all know that printing with 3D printers isn't like a laser printer in the 2D world. It takes a while. So anything you can do to minimize it. If you don't need the strength, for instance, this is just a small figure here. I made it 15% infill. That'll also reduce the amount of time that it takes to print something, because you're not filling it with a bunch of plastic. But if you need a rigid component, like this here, which is something that I've been designing, I made it 100% because I want it to be as solid as possible. But I will have to say, I'm going to give, what's the name of this company that makes the Polymaker?
Polymaker.
Polymaker. I want to give them a shout out. I just started using this the other day, and I do feel that it is a rigid component.
Yeah, and it's got a little bit of flex
Yes.
to it.
So unlike, not too much. he's taunting me. So yes, I think they've got some great material. I haven't tried their flexible. That's also using the same. So it's solid.
Yeah, pretty strong.
Yeah. And the good thing is it's cornstarch based. They also have a couple of others, right? They have a flexible. Have you worked with that yet?
I haven't. You know, I've been so stuck, holed up printing in the ABS world. Pretty much everything I've been printing of as of late, up through yesterday, was all ABS. My Goccupy, I was printing some more parts for the Goccupy, and everything seems to be ABS. So
Yeah, how's that coming?
it's coming together. Yeah, actually, I was working on it this morning, and so for those of you that haven't seen the Goccupy, check out goccupy.com. Really thank our guests today for joining us. From MakerGear, we had Ryan, and we had Hi, of course, from Simplify 3D. And is there anything else, Hi, that you'd like to add?
No, I don't think so. Looks like the print's going pretty well. It makes me happy to see.
And where can we find the software, and how much is it?
So you can find the software at simplify3d.com. You can also check out, we have a bunch of tutorials on our website, teaches you about our software, a lot of different features, blog posts. A license right now is $140. So that's about it.
Now, one of the things I asked Clayton, hopefully I didn't have my headset in, is that the software doesn't have a trial version. Is there a reason for that?
We don't have a trial version because we felt, having a feature limited version of our software kind of takes back from the whole experience. When you can do all these different things with our software, that's where all the power comes from, is having this kind of all-in-one experience. Whereas if we kind of took some features out, it wouldn't be the full effect, as well as trying to support all of the people who email us. If you email us customer support, you're going to get me or someone else in the office, and we try to get back to you as soon as possible. And when we did do a trial in the past, we got tons of emails from people who didn't really know much about 3D printing, and we were just trying to get back to everyone so quick that we couldn't get back to. So we try to just focus our time on the customers who support us. But if you do email us and you don't have the software, we're happy to talk to you. It just helps out with our end of things when we're trying to get things timed out properly.
Got it. Yeah. So simplify3d.com. That's right.
Yes.
And yeah, definitely check it out. It's paid FFF software, but it's well worth it. It simplifies your 3D experience. So thanks for being on the show, Hi. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
And thanks to all our listeners. And we'll be coming up shortly here with another demo machine and another episode, special edition of holiday episode of All Things 3D, talking about the Little RP DLP.
Yeah, and we've actually got the maker of the Little RP. He might be joining us a little late. I told him he wanted to hold off till 4 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, but I told him 3 p.m., so hopefully he can make it. We are supposed to start at 2:30. I don't know if we want to hold off or go ahead and start at that time.
But either way, we'll be coming back at you with another episode of All Things 3D here in just a little bit. So hang with us.
Bye.